everyone, welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us, as always, is AMC Movie News Editor-in-Chief, John Campea.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the show, coming to you live from the Stream.TV studios here in Hollywood, California. We are so glad you decided to make us a part of your day.
Also here, AMC Movie News Editor, Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Hey guys, happy Thursday.
Also here, AMC Movie News Entertainment Correspondent Erin Darling.
Hey guys, good morning. Glad to be here.
Game of Thrones creator and author George R.R. Martin was recently interviewed by The Hollywood Reporter and revealed that discussions were happening revolving around ending the series with a feature film. Martin also said the following: "It all depends on how long the main series runs. Do we run for 7 years? Do we run for 8? Do we run for 10? The books get bigger and bigger in scope. It might need a feature to tie things up. Something with a feature budget like $100 million for 2 hours. Those dragons get real big, you know." John, could we see a Game of Thrones movie?
That's, it's possible. I mean, it's really possible. But I mean, at the same time, with something that Martin is saying here about how, you know, you could stretch these stories out. There's so much to tell. These dragons are getting bigger. The story's getting bigger. Do you really want to make the final chapter a 2-hour movie as opposed to another 12-episode season? And also keep this in mind, too. The estimates I read online was that right now Game of Thrones is getting about 12 million viewers. Those are good numbers. But if you do a movie, and if every single person who watches the show buys a ticket, because it's going to be hard to sell tickets to people who haven't followed the show. If this is going to be the climax of the show, it's going to be hard to say, hey, come on in. You don't know anything that's going on, but come on in and watch this movie. If you sold a ticket to every single person who watched it, that means you're going to make about $120 million at the box office. That doesn't cut it on a $100 million budget at all. You're going to need to make $200 million at the box office to break even on a $100 million budget movie. So it's challenging. But if there's any show out there that has the potential to do it, it's Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is very cinematic. When you watch it, it's so cinematic in nature. Its narrative style is very cinematic. It's got the potential to do it. I'd be up for it. I'd like to see it. I just don't know how realistic it is. But I do know this. The people at HBO are really biting their fingernails wanting George R.R. Martin to finish writing all this stuff. Because this dude could die any minute. And he has not done his books yet. And he is living the life of the celebrity right now, more than he ever has in his life. And more power to you, dude. He is living it up right now. He is the hottest thing in the world right now. So we're just going to have to wait a little while, I guess. Amy Rose, could we see a Game of Thrones movie, and would you be up for one?
I think we could, but first things first, finish the series, Martin. Finish the series.
Finish the books first.
And you know, I'm really glad. This is one of my favorite shows, no question. I've been eagerly waiting for April to hit, like all of us have, and yeah, I just think it's beautiful. I mean, HBO, their productions are so rich and amazing, so I don't really think anything's lacking anyway. But first things first, finish the series, because I love that he does have, you know, this visual cinematic universe as well. Universe, my head just lives in those terms now. But I'm glad that he is thinking along the lines of, you know, the future of this on television and the big screen, but he should also just focus on the books and then see where that goes, whether it be continuing the series or turning into a film, but he should really focus on the books.
Hasn't it been 2 or 3 years since he finished the last book?
It's been forever.
Right.
And people are worried. But yeah, I do think this lends itself incredibly well to it. But you're right, the shows itself are almost an hour as well. So I want as much Game of Thrones as I can get, and it's such a rich world. So I hope he writes it. Go, Martin,
Erin?
go.
The way things are going now, they could absolutely pace this out and take a lot of time with it. But I'm in the mind frame where I think that they should really strike while the iron is hot. And if they ever wanted to do this or plan to bring it to the big screen, which it would be a great fit for that, I think they should plan on doing it pretty soon, sooner than later.
All right, what's next?
Back in 2012, it was announced that a film adaptation of the popular video game series Splinter Cell was in development, and that The Dark Knight Rises star Tom Hardy was attached to star, but not much movement has been seen on the project since. Today, it's being reported that Doug Liman has officially been brought on to direct the film. Liman has previously directed such films as The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and the upcoming Tom Cruise film Edge of Tomorrow. Amy Rose, is Liman a good fit for Splinter Cell?
I actually think he's a really good fit. I mean, he's done action. I thought Mr. and Mrs. Smith was actually pretty fun, and I mean, it was no surprise to anyone that those two ended together because they sizzled on screen together. The chemistry was just ridiculous. And he also did Swingers and Go and other films like that. And I mean, Splinter Cell is such a successful franchise. I would love to see Tom Hardy play Sam Fisher. He would be amazing in that role. He's the main protagonist of the game series. But yeah, I think he's a good fit. I mean, for something like this, he has experience. I think the new Tom Cruise film looks really fun. So he's dabbled with comedy, character-driven, action, all of this that I would want to see in Splinter Cell. So yeah, not to say I want Splinter Cell to be comedic, but he can do it all. So I do think he's a solid fit. Even though his Bourne film wasn't my favorite in the franchise, I still thought his direction was pretty well done. So yeah.
Aaron?
I agree. I think his body of work shows that he can do exactly what this movie needs, and I'm really excited to see this one on the big screen. I think Splinter Cell is one of those projects that could really, really do well, especially as a video game. So I think that's in really good hands. I can't wait to see what he does with it.
You're right. He's a great fit. I mean, when you look at movies like Bourne, which I thought he did a great job introducing the Bourne series in that way. Edge of Tomorrow looks really good, although I much preferred the title when it used to be called All You Need Is Kill.
Yeah,
and you're right. I think Mr. and Mrs. Smith is an underappreciated little gem of an action film. I think it's really fun and funny. And Splinter Cell should have dabs of comedic moments through it. Yeah, it should be seasoned with it.
Exactly.
Not be a comedy,
yeah,
but it should be seasoned with it, and I think he's a really good fit. All right, what's next?
Yesterday, we reported that filmmaker Ivan Reitman was stepping away as the director for the planned next Ghostbusters film. Today, Hollywood journalist Nikki Fink is reporting that Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller are already in discussions with Sony to take over the project. Aaron, would Miller and Lord be a good fit for Ghostbusters?
Absolutely. They would be a great fit for this movie. They have a track record of basically bringing kind of obscure ideas or retro ideas back to the big screen, and they make it work. And they're so funny. They're talented. They're on a hot streak right now. If anyone can do this and make this project work, it's them.
Aaron or Amy Rose?
I'm definitely drinking the Kool-Aid of Miller and Lord. I mean, they just... You're right. They bring obscure things. Lego Movie, none of us were really excited about that at Comic-Con.
Oh, no.
I was like, let's just have a fun interview. And then I was like, okay. After I saw it, it was fantastic. And I feel like everything they've touched, whether it be live action, animated, anything, so excited for 22 Jump Street. They're such a good team, and they're so clever and witty and also have beautiful shots. But Ghostbusters 3, without Ivan Reitman, without Harold, without Bill Murray, I don't want to see it. I just don't think it's going to bring back the magic. I'd rather them reboot it and do something fresh and start the franchise over, because all these very important elements are not going to be Ghostbusters 3 to me. So while they are a good fit, I'd rather them not do Ghostbusters 3 at this point.
I doubt they're going to call it Ghostbusters 3, but at the same time, we talked on the show the other day that I would much rather they just reboot this thing and just call it a reboot, a proper reboot, and all that kind of stuff. But moving ahead, Lord Miller, absolutely.
For anything, really.
Absolutely. I mean, and look at what they've done so far. Whether you're talking about Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, then something like an R-rated comedy to 21 Jump Street, and they do something as purely delightful as the Lego Movie. This is just a really, really good fit. But I do want to suggest a couple other guys that I think could do a pretty decent job on a Ghostbusters as well. Jake Kasdan, who directed the Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. He also directs a lot of New Girl, and he also worked on the original and the upcoming sequel, Bad Teacher. I think he would be kind of a nice little fit. Another guy would be Todd Phillips. Now, a lot of people want to dump on Todd Phillips right now because of Hangover 2 and Hangover 3, but don't forget about Hangover. Don't forget about Old School. I mean, this guy
I will never forget Old School.
Even Due Date, I thought, had a good amount of charm. So that all fits in there as well. Seth Rogen and Goldberg would also be a really interesting idea to direct a film like this. But if I had to choose, if I was whispering in Amy Pascal's ear over at Sony about who should maybe direct this, I love Lord and Miller.
Yeah.
That's great. To me, the most poetic and perfect guy would be Jason Reitman.
Oh, yeah.
Ivan Reitman's
I could see
son,
that.
whether you're looking at films like Up in the Air, which is fantastic, Thank You for Smoking, Juno. I wasn't a big fan of the last one that he just did, Labor Day.
Yeah.
But that was one out of all the films he's done.
And it still was interesting.
Yeah, it keeps it in the family, per se. He's a wonderful Oscar-nominated director and writer. I think I would love to see Reitman, but don't get me wrong. If it comes to pass that it's Lord and Miller, you're going to see all of us going,
awesome.
I was completely disinterested in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And now suddenly I have a bit of interest in Ghostbusters. That's what adding these two guys would do. So it would be a pretty good move on Sony's part. All right, folks, listen, we're not going to do buy and sell today because yesterday, due to our brackets, and don't forget, you still got a couple of hours to go and vote on the brackets. We're going to put a link in the description of this video where you can go and vote on the superhero comic book March Movie Madness tournament we're having. Almost 20,000 of you have submitted brackets already,
Well
which
played.
was huge. But you still have a few hours to submit your brackets for round one. We're going to pick up on round two tomorrow. But since we didn't have any time for viewer questions today, we're going to leave a little bit of extra time today for viewer questions. And we're going to start with mailbag. And listen, after mailbag, if you're watching this live, you can tweet in a question live. Tweet to us at AMC Movie News. But for now, we've got a few messages from the mailbag pulled out. Ashley's got a few of them over there. So Ashley, what do we have?
Marcus Griffin writes, "Hey Movie Talk crew, I was wondering, it seems Marvel films have started becoming more and more serious and less goofy like some of their previous films. Do you think this is because of the more serious tone of DC films?"
No, I don't. I think, first of all, we haven't seen a darker tone in the Marvel films. Marvel has been extremely consistent and faithful to what their tone is. And there's some really, which is some really intense action with a lot of levity involved and all that kind of stuff. You know, but this reminds me of something that people were saying to me the other day, because we were doing the bracket, and a lot of people would write to me and say, you know, The Dark Knight changed the way comic book movies were made. No, it didn't. The Dark Knight is awesome. It didn't change anything. I mean, if anything, really, if you want to talk about dark tones and more serious natures, my contention right now is that comic book movies today still look an awful lot like the original X-Men film. Because if you want to talk about darkness, okay, let's go way before Batman Begins to that original X-Men film. The movie starts in a German concentration camp where they're marching off families to be gassed to death and separating children from their parents. You don't get much darker than that. I mean, it is a pretty somber toned film in a lot of different ways. Now, did The Dark Knight then take it up a notch?
Yeah.
Absolutely it did. I think The Dark Knight, I don't even know that I have the original X-Men, which I like a lot. I don't even know that I have the original X-Men in my top 10 favorite superhero comic book movies of all time, but I do like it a lot. And The Dark Knight is definitely a better movie than the original X-Men. But if you want to talk about what was the movie that set that bar, that set that tone, that set that pace, that all comic book movies since that time have replicated, Kevin Feige, Ari Arad, I can't remember the name of the producer over there at Spider-Man, but they'll all tell you it was the original X-Men. So has Marvel changed because of what DC has done? No, I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that at all. Not that there isn't some great stuff in a lot of these DC. Everybody knows how much I love Man of Steel. Everybody knows how much I love The Dark Knight. But no, Marvel has not altered anything at all because of what's been going on. And I think if you watch the Marvel films, they're all very consistent in their tone. And I think that's good because it's working for them and they should continue that way. Anyway, Amy Rose, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's the opposite. Like, we're waiting for DC to step it up because Marvel films consistently keep going. And The Dark Knight, I mean, I'll go on record, that's still my favorite comic book film of all time. I mean, I'm not going graphic novel because I'd go V for Vendetta and a lot of other ones, but I think that, you know, X-Men introduced and had people start taking seriously this comic book world that so many of us loved, and then they showed what was possible. But Dark Knight raised the bar. Cinematically, it was not just an amazing comic book film, it was an incredible film. The most beautiful performances, everything about it. I mean, Nolan is just a breathtaking filmmaker, but I do think as well that X-Men kind of set the groundwork, and then Nolan just took it a step further like he does with most of his films. But yeah, I mean, I just think that in terms of what Feige and Marvel have done, they just have very different tones. I mean, DC has felt more grounded, more gritty. That's just kind of what they've been doing. And Marvel's been kind of adopting more humor as well as the grittiness. So I think that they have, in all of their films, they have a very consistent tone going on. And some of the properties are a little darker, and some of them would be shown that way. But, I mean, even look at Thor. I mean, that could be a very far-fetched idea, but it still felt grounded in some aspects of it. So I think they have a really beautiful balance going on. And I'm excited for DC to continue, because now it looks like they do have groundwork happening. But no, I don't think Marvel is copying DC in any way.
And Marvel's done a really good job of beating to their own drummer path whatever metaphor
Marching
you
to
want
your
to
own
use.
drum.
Yes, exactly.
Beating to their
combining
own
my
path.
guys, internet.
Trend this. Hashtag beating to your own path.
Beating to your own path. But
Sounds kind of dirty. Sorry, what that.
A little filthy.
Okay. That is exactly what they've been doing, though. They've really been able to stay true to what they've wanted to do, and they've been extremely consistent. Everything they've done is so planned out so far in advance that I don't think they're taking anyone into consideration other than their own commitment to their ideas and what they're going for. And I respect that. And they've kind of done their own thing when it comes to directors, casting, ideas, the properties that they're now introducing into phase 3. We're getting a little bit weird here, but I appreciate that because they are very committed to their vision, and I don't think it's influenced by DC or what anyone else is doing.
And I think people miss this, that the DC comic book films and the Marvel comic book films actually do share a lot in common. But I would tell me what you think about this. If I were to say this distinction, that DC aims, and both are very enjoyable, what I'm about to say, but DC aims to be a little bit more dramatic. Marvel aims to be a little more entertaining. That feels like that's where their targets
Definitely.
are. So in trying to make a really enjoyable film, DC skews their aim a bit to be a bit more dramatic. Marvel skews their aim to be a bit more entertaining. But I think it's just, it's just a little bit. It's very distinctive, but I think you can see the identity of both.
And look at our bracket. I mean, we all knew it was going to be Avengers versus, Dark Knight in the first one. I mean, I'm not surprised about that. In terms
But it hasn't yet.
Not yet, but mine, that's where mine ended up. I'll tell you right now. And I'm not surprised, but Avengers was more entertaining. I think you nailed it. And The Dark Knight was the better film. So I just think that.
See, I think Avengers was a better film.
Bring it, John.
Avengers was the better film. But Avengers was a bit more entertaining.
Yes.
Dark Knight, more dramatic.
Gritty.
Dark. Then you take those two, then it's up to the individual about what your particular tastes are. What then makes the better what makes the best overall film for you? For me, it was the Avengers. For you, it's the Dark Knight. For a lot of other people, it might be Iron Man. For a lot of other people, it might be the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Might be a little bit different. Anyway, sorry, lots of time on that question. What's the next question?
Charlesworth Williams writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Keep up the great work. Do you guys think that The Incredibles sequel will have a small or large time skip? I would like to see a 10-year time skip, focusing mostly on Jack and the development of his multiple abilities."
The great thing, the advantage that they have in doing an Incredibles 2, and yes, I've still peed myself a little. I'm really excited about Incredibles 2 finally coming. The advantage that they have with Incredibles 2 over, say, a movie like Star Wars Episode 7, you can't do Star Wars Episode 7, have Luke, Han, and Leia, and say it's 3 years later. That ain't going to work. That won't fly. You clearly have to say it's 20, 30, 40 years later, and I think they're aiming for 30 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. With the Incredibles, you can do whatever you want. Because it's animated. You can draw Jack the exact same way. It doesn't matter. The voices still all sound the same. You can set this movie up so it happens the day after the events of The Incredibles, or you can do what I hope they do, which is 10 years later, 12 years later, maybe see, Jack is now a teenager, maybe the age of his older sister in this movie. I still want to see Frozone flying around doing this thing, an older aged Frozone. Look, the thing that made The Incredibles so brilliant was that it was an adult film that was just friendly for kids, which is what a lot of Pixar is. But more Incredibles than anything else. The main issues in The Incredibles were the issues of aging, about former glory days, recapturing your youth, marriage problems, struggling with family. I'm telling you, I know a lot of families who just sat through and parents who love this film for themselves. And I'd like to see them kind of continue that trend a little bit in the next one. So I'm with you. I'm going to say go like 10 years in the future. What do you think?
Sounded like a little family therapy watching Incredibles going through all of that. I love that it's on TV right now that they've announced that, because I've definitely watched it a couple times this week, no shame. But yeah, I think that is the beautiful part about animation. And, with a lot of animated films, they tend to make the parents not age that much and watch the kids grow up really quickly.
Yeah.
And Jack, we saw a little bit at the end there how fun, his powers kind of developing. And I do think that would be cool to see that. But I love the family dynamics so much about this film. So I want them all to still have a really big part in it, but I do think it would be smart, maybe the daughters in college or something, they kind of moved it up that way. But I don't think 10 years would be a lot. I think even like 5, but we'll see. I don't even really care that much. I'm just really excited it's finally happening.
Erin?
I'm with you, John. I actually think they should age them up a little bit and capitalize on the themes and the elements of the movie that we love so much from the first one. So I think if they stay true to that theme that they're going for, it would make a lot of sense to make them a little bit older, but not too too much older.
That picture makes me so happy.
It does. It just makes you happy, doesn't it?
Happy.
All right, what's next?
Matt Randall writes, my question is, with Henry Wu returning for Jurassic World, and with Colin Trevorrow's comments of, he spent 2 decades living in Hammond's shadow, underappreciated, we think there's more to his story. These words almost make it sound like he's becoming a villain. What are your thoughts? Thanks again, and keep bringing on the filthy.
B.D. Wong is one of these actors who you will recognize him immediately and have
yeah.
no idea what his name is. You know, pop up in all these different things. He was great. There was a little show that was on about a year or two ago called, I can't remember the name of it now, Awake. It was the show on NBC, Awake. He was in that for the one season that lasted. I thought it deserved more. He was in Oz. If you ever watched Oz, he was the priest in Oz. He was so good in that. He's in Law and Order. He's been just in a ton of things. So it's one of those faces. You know him immediately.
You don't know his name.
Don't know who he is,
Poor
though.
guy.
I think what you're suggesting is completely accurate. I think. I would guess that. Because think about it. When you think about Jurassic World, he's the guy, he's the genius that made Jurassic Park happen. The character, I mean, not B.D. Wong. Like Dr. Wu is the guy who made it all happen. And you're right, living in Hammond's shadow for so long, seeing that they messed up his life's work and all that kind of stuff. I would love to see him return as an antagonist. I really would. I think that would be very, very cool. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's very perceptive to put that together because there's just so many moving parts of this and we don't know too much about it. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I love storylines like that where, you know, it starts off like a friendship, a partnership, and then something goes horribly wrong like we've seen in the other films. And then, you know, he starts feeling resentment and all this. And I think that would be a very interesting storyline. And not to mention to be such a good tip of the hat to people that have been with the franchise this long.
Yes.
So I think it would be very, very clever. Add Chris Pratt in the mix. I mean, all this is shaping up real nice.
But you know what it is? It's having a character like Dr. Wu is a great way to tie the franchise together without making it feel like you're forcing in popular characters. So this is a really nice move on their part, I think. Anyway, Erin, how do you see it?
Yeah, considering the history that already exists, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a great character to kind of weave in to have a bigger presence in the upcoming films. And I also love the type of character that he's going to play.
Yeah.
I love a mad scientist, crazy guy. So hopefully we can get a little bit of that action going on.
Oh yeah, let's get that.
All right, what's next?
Aaron writes, my question is about the 300 franchise. I admit Rise of an Empire was a step down from the first 300, but it was still a solid action movie. It got mostly negative or mediocre reviews, 42% on RT, and the box office numbers are decent, but ROAE surely won't be as profitable as the first one. So with ROAE having an open ending, do you think they will make a third movie?
It's not as far-fetched as you think. I mean, it's still in theaters. It cost, the production budget was $110 million, so you figure it's got to make around 220, 230 million to make profit. It's already made 240. It's still making more money. They do leave the film at the end open-ended to lead into a third film, and I think we will. I think we will. I think there's money. I was entertained by this film. I was a little bit surprised that it didn't get better critical response. I actually saw it and I thought more critics would like it. But I had a good time with it. Not as good as the first 300. No. But I thought a pretty fun little movie, and I think they'll do another one. What do you think?
And actually, it performed exactly, I think, the goal that WB wanted, over 40 million for opening weekend, and it just continues to grow. So I think they're very pleased with the results. And, you know, adding Eva Green and Lena Headey to any picture, I'm generally in. I mean, Eva Green is just I mean, she's just such a babe, and she's so fun.
I loved her in this film. I did.
She's great. And I mean, what do you expect with a movie like 300? Do you think it's going to be, you know, such an incredible script? I know what to expect. It's going to be over the top, slow-mo blood, and, you know, amazing costumes. One of the hottest sex scenes in film in a long, long time. I mean, I thought it was fun. I went in with very managed expectations. So, you know, it's hard when they originally introduced these characters. The first one is generally better. Yeah. It's just how it goes. It's hard to revisit, but I thought they did a good job, and you know, with Eva Green, it's hard to deny. I cannot wait to see her in Sin City. Whew.
I also think that Sullivan Stapleton's been getting a lot of buzz right now too.
He was
with
great
his
in it too,
and I think he did a really good job stepping into the shoes of that role that was already filled, you know. And I think he did a great job. And a lot of people are saying that maybe he's the next action star, the one we've been looking for, who we don't really have right now. So I think that they're definitely going to use that to propel into a third movie, even if it's a DVD release.
All right, folks. Well, listen, we're going to leave a couple of extra minutes here for your live questions on Twitter. Once again, if you got a question you'd like to ask, tweet it to us at AMC Movie News. Ashley's keeping her eyes on the Twitter stream right now and picking out some questions. So, Ashley, what do we have?
DJ Big John writes, have you guys seen the trailer for The Giver yet? It was short but looks really good. Your thoughts?
I don't think I have. Which one is The Giver again?
It's based off of a book.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just
I have not
released.
seen it yet myself.
I haven't either, and I've been wanting to watch it. I've heard that it's pretty exceptional.
Yeah, I've not seen it either. Someone sent it to me on Twitter, so thank you for that. We'll check it out today.
We have homework to do.
Yes. All right, so what's next?
Sebastian Villages writes, hey John, nice jacket. What are the chances of an X-Men reboot sometime in the near future?
Zero. Absolutely zero. We know that, first of all, X-Men Days of Future Past is coming out, and they've already got the next film after that planned, X-Men Age of Apocalypse. What did they aim that one? 2016?
16, yeah.
So, at least for the next few years, we've got an ongoing X-Men story, and I don't think they're planning on stopping at that. As a matter of fact, look, this is what I think. It's speculation, so don't report this as news. This is just me speculating, all right? But we've talked about it on the show before. I believe that they are going to they're going to discover a plot device to bring the X-Men First Class cast into the modern era. I think that's how they're going to do it. And then with a rebooted Fantastic Four, they're aiming to try to take over a new Fox shared cinematic universe with all those heroes, and they're going to continue to move forward. If I'm right, and that is the plan, and it kind of looks like that's what they're doing, then I don't think we're going to see a rebooted X-Men anytime soon. Do you guys see it any differently?
That gives me warm and fuzzy feelings inside thinking about that crossover. It needs to happen. They just have these amazing properties, and it absolutely needs to happen. But yeah, I just don't really see a point in rebooting it. It's still really hot. It's still really relevant. I mean, even if they recast Wolverine, which it seems like it's going to happen soon. I mean, maybe after the third standalone, whatever. Hugh Jackman is over it. Good for you. You put in, this is his 7th appearance with Days of Future Past. So, I mean, there's ways, or maybe they'd get, Old Man Logan, or different storylines they could evolve, or show new X-Men characters and not show the other ones. I mean, there's so many different storylines they could explore. So at this point, I still think it's really hot and really relevant, and we do have 2 films, already on the pipeline. So yeah, I don't think there's a need to reboot it, but of course they're going to until the end of time because, this is one of Fox's hottest properties and they're not one to waste it. So don't worry, we'll get lots of X-Men.
I think there's opportunity for lots of these characters to get spin-offs, and I think that they don't want to reboot that and change that opportunity for that to happen as well. And I know that Fox is also thinking about maybe X-Force at this point in time. So if
there's some talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Deadpool, just saying. So there's a lot of characters that I think they could still use from before introducing a whole new cast.
All right, what's next?
William Farley writes, given that Universal's only lucrative franchise is F&F, do you think they would like to set up more sequels in Jurassic World?
Oh, yeah. Would they like to have a big blockbuster financial success franchise? Yes. I also know. Wait, what am I allowed to say? I know they're looking at getting into the superhero game. I know that. But yes, they would absolutely love to have Jurassic World. Look, they're not going to make Jurassic World and at the end of that movie go, and all the dinosaurs are now gone. And they're not going to do that. They are going to leave this open for the possibility of more films. They absolutely would love to see this turn franchise. You guys?
Who isn't trying to get in a superhero game right now? Like, that's where the money is right now, so that would be smart. And of course, I mean, they still have had a profitable year. But yeah, I mean, the dream is to have successful franchises. That's kind of a no-brainer. And I want more big dinos on the screen, so I'm in for that.
Yeah, I think they have a really good shot at doing it, too, with Jurassic World. So I think that they're feeling optimistic about this one.
Did you guys see the 3D version when they remastered?
I did not go to see the 3D version.
You know that I did. It was so great.
All right, let's take 2 more.
Okay. Colby Lee Bean writes, have you guys heard of the Pixar theory? If so, what do you think about it?
If you're talking, there are several Pixar theories. If the one you are talking about is how they are all actually in the same universe, that all the films are actually connected and they're all actually in the same universe, yes, I have. I think it's stretching it. I don't think that's really the case. But it's a very interesting theory. I remember the first time I read that one guy who kind of basically wrote the original thesis on this, and I thought, First of all, you put way too much work into this. But secondly, I thought it was very fascinating, but I think we're connecting dots that don't necessarily exist. So I don't think that Pixar theory is true, but it's a really cool, if you haven't found it, look it up online, you'll see what we're talking about. Have you guys read the Pixar theory?
I've heard about it, and I don't think it was intentional, but I love that idea. Hypothetically, I think that's so cute and endearing to me. It like warms all my heart inside.
There was another theory that came out online. This is a little bit separate, but this one I found far more fascinating that made me go, wait a minute! The idea that, what's the toy's owner's name? What's his name?
Andy?
Andy. That Andy's mom
Oh, yeah.
is actually the original girl who owned, and I forget the girl cowboy's name.
Jessie.
Jessie is actually the owner of the original Jessie. And when you read that theory and how it explains it out, it's
I like that too.
This doesn't feel like it's connecting two dots that don't exist. This feels like a really straight line. And that one kind of blew my mind.
I love the whole concept of, this universe unfolding, and how cool would that be to see some of our favorite Pixar characters on the screen together? I mean, that would be pretty exciting. So yeah, I think that it's cute. Everyone does this with theories and like Easter eggs and all sorts of films like, oh, does that mean they're going here? It doesn't always. They're just trying to give fans a little nod, but I think it's also endearing and
Could
kind of
you imagine an Avengers type of film where, Buzz and Woody have to team up with Sully and Mike and the Incredibles
Yes!
to fight off some big threats to the movie? I mean, obviously Wally can't be in there, but then you get the old man
Wally.
from Up can come in or something like that. I'm just
Sounds
telling.
like Wreck-It Ralph.
Look. To quote the overused online meme, "Take my money now." Just take my
Shut
money
up
now.
and take my quarters.
All right, last one. Let's take one more question.
J_as says, what do you think about the rumors of Bats versus Soups taking place a decade after The Dark Knight Rises?
No.
Here we go, rant.
Look, I'm gonna say this short. I'm gonna keep this short. I'm gonna say as calm as I can. The Dark Knight Rises doesn't exist anymore. That whole universe is gone. None of this. Oh, but I read somewhere. Lies. Lies. The new Batman film, the new Superman, this new DC universe has nothing to do with the Christopher Nolan universe. Let it sink in. Let the truth wash over you and soothe your ego-bruised soul. Okay? It's done. So no, there is no connection to the old Batman films.
Hashtag truth baptism.
Do you notice I didn't yell or scream
You
once
start
there?
to dress up and then you control your anger and your temper? Who is this imposter?
All right, folks, that'll do it for us. We're all out of time here today. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, don't forget, lots of great films playing at AMC screens right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and your movie ticket information. Now listen, if you haven't done so already, click subscribe, become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. Keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movies. And if you want an audio-only podcast of this show, look down in the description of this video and you'll find links to our Stitcher and our iTunes. I want to thank, first of all, the people sitting at the table with me. Miss Amy Rose Eisenbach. Amy Rose, where can people find you online?
At Amy Rosie on Twitter. Thanks so much.
Miss Erin Darling. Erin, where can people find you?
Twitter, Erin A. Darling, Facebook, Erin Darling fan page, and YouTube, Erin Ashley B. Thanks so much for tuning in, Internet.
And of course, our lovely host today, Miss Ashley Mova. Ashley, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Ashley Mova. Have a good one, guys.
And you can find me on the various social media channels at John Campia. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. My name is John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until next time, bye-bye.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.